For decades, the global powers have looked at the African continent through a deeply insulting lens. Because to them, we are not a cradle of sophisticated civilization or a global powerhouse of design. No, in their executive boardrooms, we are treated as a convenient transactional destination, or worse, a literal dumping ground for the unwanted, worn-out leftovers of the industrialized world. They pack giant shipping containers with the ragged, stained, and outdated garments that Americans throw into their recycling bins, slap a philanthropic label on it, and send it across the Atlantic. Welcome back to Power and Pulse, to our dedicated, unyielding community of truth seekers. Thank you for standing firm on this digital front line. If you are tuning in for the very first time, prepare yourself for uncompromised clarity. We do not engage in polite, diplomatic doublespeak on this channel. We pull back the curtain on the subtle, invisible systems designed to keep our nations perpetually on their knees. Today, we are reporting on an absolute geopolitical earthquake. Captain Ibrahim Traoré, the revolutionary military leader and president of Burkina Faso, has just drawn an iron line in the sand. He has officially declared absolute war on the importation of second-hand clothes, specifically targeting the multi-million-dollar trade pipelines flowing directly from the United States. This isn't a minor administrative policy or a casual change in customs regulations. This is a profound act of psychological and economic liberation. Traore is attacking a silent generational system that has systematically dismantled our internal progress while tricking our people into paying for their own subjugation. Now, stay with me until the final second of this documentary. We are going to look at the dark multi-million-dollar reality behind charity, examine the devastating collapse of our indigenous textile empires, and expose the aggressive threats currently being hurled at Ouagadougou by Western diplomats who are terrified of a self-reliant Africa. Also, hit the subscription button, smash the like button, and let's dive straight into the raw truth. Let's break down the mechanics of this corporate deception, because the vocabulary they use is pure comedy. The Western exporters call these massive bales of clothing benevolent donations or accessible democratic fashion. It sounds so incredibly kind, doesn't it? It sounds like an act of global friendship. But let's look at the cold structural data. These garments are not aid. They are environmental and industrial waste, offloaded at minimal cost by Western corporations that simply want to avoid the high fees of disposing of their synthetic garbage in domestic landfills. In languages across the continent, our people develop very specific, highly accurate terms for these clothes. In Ghana, they call them obroni wawu, which literally translates to dead white man's clothes. In other regions, they call them the garments of the deceased. Our ancestors intuitively understood the psychological weight of putting on the discarded identity of an outsider. But look at what this psychological habit did to our domestic economy behind the scenes. Before the massive influx of foreign trash, West Africa possessed a thriving, sophisticated, and deeply respected textile ecosystem. We had generations of master weavers, brilliant local tailors, fabric manufacturers, and independent designers who kept our wealth circulating within our own communities. But how can an indigenous artisan who spends days meticulously handcrafting a vibrant cultural significant garment survive against an artificial flood of nearly free mass-produced American jeans and shirts? It was mathematically impossible. Our local production lines were systematically starved of demand, forcing factories to close their gates, causing farmers to abandon their fields, and millions of skilled youths into absolute unemployment. The imperial press calls this free trade, but any clear-thinking mind knows it is a deliberate economic sabotage. Enter Captain Ibrahim Traoré. This is a leader who clearly does not know how to speak the cowardly, ambiguous language of international diplomacy. He doesn't look for validation from Washington, and he certainly doesn't ask for permission from Paris. When he looked at the state of his nation's markets, he didn't propose a minor tax increase or a slow bureaucratic phase-out. He issued a complete, unyielding and immediate ban on the importation of all second-hand garments into Burkina Faso. There is absolutely zero room for misinterpretation in those words. Traore understands a fundamental truth that many of our older compromised politicians completely ignored. True self-determination begins with what you put on your body. Clothing is not just a collection of stitched fabrics to keep you warm. Clothing is a living manifestation of culture, history, and collective identity. For centuries, our traditional textiles, whether it's legendary kente of Ghana and the intricate Bogolani fili of Mali, or the majestic Faso Danfani of Burkina Faso, have served as visual languages. They tell the profound stories of our tribes, the wisdom of our elders, the climate of our land, and the resilience of our families. They are bold, vibrant, and rich with ancestral meaning. When an African citizen spends their entire life walking around in a faded American corporate t-shirt or a pair of discarded European jeans, they aren't just saving money. They are gradually absorbing another culture's leftover while quietly abandoning the rich artistic expression of their own ancestors. Traore's mandate is a powerful cultural rescue operation designed to restore national self-ownership through indigenous craftsmanship. Let's be completely transparent here. This economic nationalism has triggered absolute panic in Western capitals. The moment Burkina Faso announced this official ban, the political and corporate machinery in the United States began pushing back with immense anger. Reports indicate that Western trade representatives instantly began issuing warnings of severe economic consequences, retaliation measures, and potential exclusions from international agreements. Now, pause and think about the absolute absurdity of this reaction. Why on earth would the most powerful economy on the planet become so deeply furious over a small landlocked West African nation deciding to stop buying old youth's clothes? It's because this trade was never about fashion. It was always about keeping our economies trapped in low dependency cycles. The West earns millions of dollars annually from exporting their synthetic waste, while simultaneously using it as a tool of soft economic influence. By ensuring our domestic markets are permanently flooded with their scraps, they guarantee that we can never build competitive manufacturing sectors that could challenge their global dominance. This isn't the first time they've used these bullying tactics. When Rwanda, under Paul Kagame, took a similarly brave stance in 2018 and banned second-hand clothing to protect its domestic textile workers, the United States reacted with immediate aggression. They suspended Rwanda's duty-free export privileges under the African Growth and Opportunity Act, launching a massive media smear campaign to paint the country as anti-business. But Rwanda held the line, and today their local government factories are thriving, creating thousands of dignified jobs for their own youth. Now, of course, the cynical critics and the Western-funded analysts are already popping up on social media crying about the potential challenges of this policy. They argue that for the lowest income families in Burkina Faso, these cheap foreign clothes were the only affordable option. They claim that prices will skyrocket, supply chains will buckle, and the poor will suffer. But this is exactly where true visionary state leadership separates itself from puppet regimes. A revolutionary band like this cannot exist in a vacuum. It must be accompanied by immediate, aggressive domestic investment, and that is precisely what Captain Traore is executing. Burkina Faso is already aggressively investing in industrial self-reliance, scaling up local cotton processing plants, providing subsidies to local weaving cooperatives, and creating massive vocational training programs for thousands of young Burkinabe tailors and designers. The iconic Faso Danfani, the beautifully woven national cloth that once served as an absolute symbol of anti-colonial resistance during the legendary era of Thomas Sankara, is making a massive triumphant return to the streets of Ouagadougou. Traore isn't just closing a border, he is breathing life back into our collective soul. When the lion of Burkina Faso stood before his people and declared that Africa is not a dumping ground, his voice carried far beyond the borders of his own nation. He was speaking directly to the exporters in Boston, the politicians in Washington, and every international financial institution that still views our home as a passive market for their excess waste. But most importantly, he was issuing a powerful paternal call to his fellow African brothers and sisters to completely reject the psychology of leftovers. This courageous movement signals a profound, unstoppable continental shift. We are witnessing the definitive birth of an era where Africa will no more accept control disguised as aid, waste marketed as support, or economic subjugation passed off as partnership. One young leader has drawn a definitive line in the dust, reminding the entire global apparatus that our continent is fully awake. We will no longer wear another culture's identity, and we will absolutely no longer construct our future on the garbage of the old world. Burkina Faso has spoken with absolute clarity, and the revolutionary echo is currently vibrating through the hearts of millions across the global south. Let us produce what we wear. Let us protect what we build. And let us march into the future in our own shoes, crafted from our own soil and our own unyielding spirit. If you are ready to stand shoulder to shoulder with Captain Ibrahim Traoré, if you are completely done with Africa being treated as a garbage dump for Western waste, and if you believe our people deserve to wear their own pride with absolute dignity, smash that like button right now. Let's force this video into the deepest corners of the global algorithms so our message of economic liberation reaches every single household across the continent. Also, share this broadcast with everyone in your circle. Post it on your platform. And let's shatter the digital blackout. Head straight down to the comment section and type Africa Awake to show your absolute solidarity with this industrial revolution. Also, don't forget to subscribe to Power and Pulse. We are your independent shield, exposing global exploitation and amplifying the authentic, proud heartbeat of our continent. Keep your intellect sharp, stand tall, and never let an outsider dictate your value. I am your host, Marie, and this is Power and Pulse. And I will see you in the next briefing. Stay blessed.